Okay. Hey, everyone. Welcome to ATARC's webinar, Building a Cloud Smart Workforce. Today, we're going to be hearing from some of the members from the Cloud Migration Working Group. So thank you all for joining us. As always, ATARC stands for Advanced Technology Academic Research Center. We're a nonprofit that facilitates collaboration between government, industry, and academia in order to accelerate technology modernization initiatives. Before we begin, I do want to just encourage everyone in the audience to submit questions of your own, if you have any, to the Q&A section of this platform, and we'll be going through them throughout the panel. So feel free to ask as many as you have. But I would like to now hand it over to our moderator for the event and a Cloud Pillar Vice Chair, Michael Cardacy from FedHive.
Thank you, Nicole.
Absolutely.
My name's Michael Cardacy. I'm the CEO of FedHive. We are a secure enclave at the FedRAMP high assessed level. I'd like to introduce my panel. I'm going to start off with Mike. If you could introduce yourself and say something about your company.
Hey guys, I'm Mike Yonkers. I'm the SE director for the for the federal team at Cisco Systems, meaning I run a engineering team that helps support the federal government, and also have a small DevOps team, which I'm hopeful we're going to get to talk about today. And I see Ed from GSA is in the audience today. He is our government chair of the working group. So Ed, thanks for joining us.
Fred, if you could say something about yourself and your agency.
Sure. My name is Fred Weisel and work with the Cloud Community Practice with General Service Administration. Right now my part is working on setting up training, workforce development for the federal workforce. And we've done a lot of this with the COVID, with remote. So it was on site, and then we with the COVID, we're doing a lot remote, and do an early session, hit the continental United States, late sessions. We get Hawaii, Japan, Guam, overseas there also. That's all right. That's good.
Thanks, Fred. Babur.
Hey everyone, Babur Kohi. I got multiple jobs, but today I'm here to support the academia at Northern Virginia Community College. I have a day career as well, leading a cloud security team for federal clients. But today my goal is to provide perspective from the academic standpoint.
Awesome. All right. So first, one of the things we're trying to do is look at how to manage the workforce and help the government have a better workforce, or the government contractors, and trying to work through the problems of keeping the workforce in addition to getting it. We're trying to do this and kind of frame the questions, and then we want to do a paper and then come back and do a webinar on the paper that we come together with. So what we would like is the audience to send in comments as we go through these questions, comments that they see, their impressions, because we want to take those into account in addition to other questions that they might have. So we're going to start off with, as it relates to cloud migration and the modern day best practices, what skills are you looking for? So industry, then I want to go to government, and then from academia, I want to say, from your point of view, what are you hearing that you're supposed to be getting, that folks are talking to you about? So Mike, you want to start?
Yeah, I'd love to start. This is a topic that I'm really passionate about because I see a massive shift going on in the IT space. And again, everybody know where I come from. I come from Cisco. I'm a network engineer by training and trade. So I have, that is the lens that I look at the world. I look forward into the cloud and what the cloud service providers and everyone who kind of works around the cloud industry, this notion of DevOps and how we can do things differently just seems to be embedded and incorporated in everything in the way that cloud practitioners think. But it's not necessarily true for the rest of the IT industry, particularly if you're still dealing with kind of on-premises or even the notions of hybrid. So from an industry point of view, what I'm looking for is people who get kind of the direction, the future, to be able to operate in this broader hybrid cloud kind of conversation. But from a skills point of view, what I'm really looking for is people that understand the DevOps culture, the DevOps processes, and maybe some tools underneath of it, and then how to apply that to solving business problems on behalf of our customers.
All right, Fred.
Sure. And kind of follow up with what Mike just said, the ideal candidate know as much as you can. If you know everything, that's great. But it's going to touch on a lot of different topics, and the chance of being an expert on everything it's possible, but it's tough. So you got the security at each layer. With the networking, you got TCP/IP. There's IP version 4, IPv6. A lot of stuff going on that's different. A lot of similarities, but a lot of things that are different. And then I start looking at the OSs again in the cloud. You're going to see Linux. You're going to see Microsoft. You're going to see Mac. How to run all those systems, how to secure those systems, what services you're running, and then programming. So a lot of once you get to the cloud, it's going to be a lot of scripting. Doesn't mean you've got to be an expert, but the more familiar you are, it's going to be the easier transition for you. Database is another one. So pick your skill. There's plenty of topics out there, technologies to be, to focus on, but you got your databases, and just make sure you got security baked into everything. So it's a lot of stuff, and plenty to pick your particular area that you're interested in. It doesn't mean you pick area one, I want to be an OS, Windows, or Linux. Today, 3 years from now, you may move to the networking and into databases. It doesn't mean you're going to have to stay in one topic.
Babur.
Excellent. I think both Mike and Fred are right on topic. So what we are hearing is some of the same things. If you want to be a technologist, you have to understand technology baselines. I think we all know that cloud have been here for decades. It's just more streamlined, more elastic, more available, so you can access it from anywhere. So traditional clouds, I think Mike mentioned, or traditional data centers, we didn't have the capabilities about 10 years ago, but nowadays we do. So in terms of academia, we're hearing everything that they said, and also interpersonal skills. You have to be able to work with cross-functional teams. And if you cannot work with that, you're going to have a really tough time. You can be the best at scripting, but if you cannot engage with other teams that are doing other parts of it, let's say, I think Mike mentioned DevOps. I'm just going to add security to it. Another buzzword, DevSecOps or secure DevOps. So secure DevOps, it's a chain, right? There's like anywhere between like 12 to 15, phases or things on that pipeline that you have to build out. Of course, scripting is part of it, but you also cannot discount, people aspects of it, policy and compliance, especially in the government world, and also security. I think that's one of the harder things to do. Traditional ways you build the application, whether using DevOps or one of the waterfall models, and then go back and secure it, or you will start thinking about security after an adverse event. But I think that has changed. So what we are doing in academia is trying to offer courses that covers the whole gambit, the whole line, so that when our people go back to the industry, whether Cisco, GSA, or FedHive, or other companies, at least they have a strong foundation of, what technology is, or what the cloud is, and how to be able to utilize, and what would be their impact, working for one of your companies.
Cool. Yeah, Fred.
We'll come back and touch with what Barbara said, was that those social skills, the soft skills are huge. And, kind of what I was looking at was, Mike and I were kind of looking at these technical skills, and the other thing is, you set it up in a lab and, Monday through Friday, it's all peaceful. So everyone's getting along. Let's say Monday through Thursday, you come in Friday morning and it's broke. It doesn't work. And if you're working for a little, let's say a mom and pop little real estate office, they can turn the hotspot on the phone and life is good again. Well, you turn that to a major industry, when the Facebook went down, or, stock market goes down. I mean, some network at a large corporation goes on. The people, the way they act during good times, sometimes is not exactly the way they act when I'll say something hits the fan.
Yep.
And then you're trying to troubleshoot this stuff. It may be a quick fix. You may show up Friday morning thinking, I'm going to the movies Friday night. Systems are down. 2:00 in the morning on Saturday, you're still at the office trying to fix this problem. That those soft skills that the folks came in at 8:00 Friday morning may or may not be the same skills that the personalities you're dealing with at 2 a.m, no sleep, they have an 8, all this kind of stuff. So it's, how much pressure do you want? Because you can, get some real soft, hey, there's no pressure to this, or, get the pressure cooker that you're responsible for these, $1 million projects. And if it goes down, it can get interesting.
I think Fred's talking about a very interesting point, and I think the cloud draws this out in a very interesting way, because we live in this world of shared responsibility models, and in a world where you control your own destiny, it's your facilities and your equipment and your software. Like, you maybe could get away without working with others, but in this world of cloud, where we're in a shared responsibility model and there's so many players and things are moving so quickly through APIs and stuff, this ability to be able to work in a community type environment, that's another area that I think we're all desperately seeking, people who have the technical skills, but also have the ability to work in a community and with shared responsibility.
Yeah, so this goes into kind of the next part of this question, where, and I'd really like to hear information from the audience too, because we want to get as much of this kind of research as we can. But what are the gaps in each one of these spaces that industry is seeing with folks just coming out of whatever training or education they have? And then I'm going to ask, kind of some other questions about some of the things that are being offered. But so for industry and for government, what are you seeing coming out that's lacking? Where are those gaps? And then obviously, Babur, the kind of same thing, what you're seeing in academia as far as some of those gaps from professional and or what you're hearing from government and industry. So I'll start again with Mike. We'll just keep in that cycle.
I would say we see a couple things in the part of the world that I live in, when people are coming straight from academia, and they have the theoretical knowledge, but they don't always have the practical hands-on experience. And I think that's where programs through like community colleges and some of these industry certification programs balance the theory that you learn in a traditional academic setting with the reality of what you're going to deal with in real life. For us, we love to hire veterans because they have both the theory and the hands-on experience in battle tested, in some cases, environments. So if I were to say that there's one gap, the one gap is the hands-on experience. There are ways to solve for that. The other gap is I almost feel like we're a step behind what's really happening in the industry when it comes to applying technical skills to solving problems. And I think that's where the power of some of these cloud native companies come about, because they solve business problems in very scalable and very fast sort of ways. And I don't know if we're necessarily teaching that, or even when we're trying to hire people into second careers, if they can bridge that gap quite yet. So there's an interesting gap there that we could work on, I think, collectively together as well.
Fred?
Yeah, and just to kind of follow up, because a lot of times I'll say overall gaps. It kind of depends on the person coming in. So if you've got someone coming in, from the military side, they're going to come in with a specific skill set. I'll say the younger recent college graduate, they're going to come in and one of the things that I talked with one organization, they said we like gamers, because the gamers see the world in a different view. They're not looking at as it like this is, and they've got an open perspective on this stuff. Not afraid of the technology, not afraid to try stuff. So it kind of depends on the individual coming in. It's getting, I'll say that, soft skills, getting knowing how to take the technology. But what happens once you get it on a live system in a classroom? It doesn't work. Let's erase, start, reload, and we'll try it again. You can't do that on the let's say $1 million project, or you're an engineer at Google or Microsoft Azure, a bank. I'll just, delete the database and start over with. Man, that's really not an option. That's, I call it an RGE, resume generating event.
Yeah.
But I think it kind of depends. You want to get the biggest skill that your tool belt with as many skills as you can, hands-on theory, because what you learn, for the certification is going to help you, but you sit at the keyboard and it's not going to say which of the following, what's wrong with the scenarios at A, B, or C. It might be completely unrelated. It may be your fault. It may be the fault of an admin upstream. And, you call up the upstream, network engineer and say, hey, it's, you're not passing OSPF or BGP routes to me. I'm looking at, you need to be able to troubleshoot that and say, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I should be seeing. And I'm not seeing, can you check this? And then it kind of gets back to this, the person soft skills again. So yeah, it's,
So one thing I want to wedge in here before I get to you, Babur, is that back in the day when I was doing IT services, I used to hire folks that were gamers, and I get strange looks from either my leadership or the folks I was contracting to, but my reasoning was these folks want to get down to whatever they need to in order to make that game work, and they're going to make those connections. They're going to figure out the problem. And so that problem solving is what I was looking for. So that I think with the kind of, at least in the DC area, and I'm sure in much of the country too, they're saying that we're going to have 100,000 job openings in the next few years with all of the different cloud folks. And in my interest, and Babur, you can talk to this, is that layering of certificates and 2-year and 4-year and postgraduate work. We're going to have to utilize that more, at least in my opinion, to be able to scale up for all of those jobs, because we can't just do what we've been doing. We're going to have to do something else. So that was my 2 cents, Babur. So you can add on to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all of those are valid points. Couple of things. In terms of academia, let me speak for Northern Virginia Community College, what we are doing to close the gap. Arguably, we were the first ones to offer a 2-year degree in cloud computing. And that had the DevOps portion, all the technical, non-technical, and functional environments. And that was a partnership with AWS. If you're not familiar with it, please check that out. And then we also have, living in Virginia, we have Virginia Cyber Range. I think Mike mentioned hands-on activities. That's open to all public schools. And then there's the US Cyber Range that's open to pretty much anyone else as long as you pay for it. So at the community college level, we have those efforts going on. It has been going on for multiple years now. But the gap that I see from the industry or the government perspective is industry and government, my opinion, they're still looking at Ivy League. They're still looking at the 4-year universities such as UVA, Virginia Tech, George Mason, or something else. And I think sometimes we are discounting all this amazing skill set that's right in your backyard. Nova Community College, one of the big ones, biggest community colleges in the US. I think those are being discounted. And to Fred's point, we do have a lot of veterans as well. They have amazing experience, second to none, especially coming out of military. They're already cleared. If you're a government contractor or a federal agency, most of you probably require that. And they have amazing leadership experience. And they're just trying to navigate the academic world, get that certification or the 2-year degree so they can move on to the next step. So those are some of the things that we're doing at Nova to close the gap. Of course, Mike, you mentioned that, a couple 100,000 jobs that are coming up, but that's good. So we need to think in non-traditional ways. Again, the few schools that you used to hire from, it may not work and it's not going to work. And I know, say Cisco of the world, they're coming out with technologies, advanced tech all the time. And sometimes you're having a difficult time keeping up with that in academics. And that's kind of the red tape. So it just takes a long time to get classes accredited. So the easier way to go about that is, or one way to solve that is workforce development, which Nova also has, to provide certificate training. So you don't have to spend 2 years to get a job. You can, it may be like, a couple of weeks. It may be like 6 to 8 weeks, get the Cisco training and certification that you need and go work on a Cisco product. And the same thing if you're Azure, AWS, and other capabilities that's out there.
So, you touched on this, Babur, but are there internal programs that say GSA? I know that you're working in one of those programs, Fred, and so I want you to talk a little bit about that. And Mike, are there programs that are either internal once you get an employee, or are they a general public or a curated public, meaning there's some criteria in order for you to be able to use them to help kind of bridge that gap? And is anybody looking at some kind of a hybrid model where there's in essence not on the job training, but you start out like Babur said, and you get some kind of a 6 to 8 week, then you get involved, and then the training continues, and you are able to move your employment needle as you're going through that process. In addition, instead of waiting till you're totally complete and then going for the job, but you're kind of moving kind of forward. So you're getting hands-on and academic at the same time. So hope that wasn't too much, but Mike, you're first.
Got it. Thanks, Mike. I was gonna see if Fred wanted to tackle that one because he's doing it, but I'll address it. And I'll try to be brief here. I would say that yes to all of your questions. I think the points that you guys are making, pointing to the need for people to do things, are driving all of us to change the criteria with which we're bringing people in to get work done. So we're looking for interesting ways. I think we're all, as a hiring manager, we're all after the same thing. Give me some level of confidence that you can do what it is that you say you've done so that I know you can do what it is I'm going to ask you to do. That can be certifications, that can be prior training, that can be military experience, that could be at some formal academic training. What we try to do is we try to drill through that and really ask some kind of behavior-based questions. Say, in this situation, what would you do? So that's the way we're trying to get after it. I would say there are tons of programs that industry and the government take advantage of to bring in through the academic world. I went into public service through college, so I co-opt. There's internship programs either in private industry and in government. The military has a skills bridge thing where we can cross over as people are transitioning out. Industry is a big believer, supporter of that. At least in my company, we are. So I think all of those things are available to us. And we all just have to be, I think the point's already been made. We have to be flexible to say it doesn't always have to be a 4-year college degree in computer science or electrical engineering. We have to start looking at other things. And I actually, quite frankly, think people are looking for those other things because they want more. And it's back to that hands-on experience. It's the soft skills and some of the stuff we've already articulated.
Fred?
And I agree. So one of the questions, said apprenticeship. So I know, so I'm with GSA, but I worked with the Navy for about 10 years, Department of Navy, and they had an internship. So they, if you're in college, you could come and work during the summer for an internship, kind of get hands-on. You're not getting turned loose with the keys to the city of, running the, production network, but you would do a little bit over here with this project, some over here with this project, and a lot of the agencies will have that internship opportunities. You can go to usajobs.com or usa.gov, usajobs.gov, I believe, and do an internship. And there's internships with all the number of different federal agencies. What happened at the Navy and also with GSA, so what at GSA now is folks, they're working in the government, and the technology is changing rapidly. And I'm not sure exact the quote, but there's a research that says what you learn today, and was it 2 years, a year, something like that, but it's kind of obsolete. And this is my opinion. Probably if you're a new graduate or getting ready to graduate, the job that you're going to have in 5-10 years from now may or may not even exist right now. So, and that's what they told me years ago. And lo and behold, what was available back then is not what's available. It wasn't available. So I'm doing something completely unrelated to it. But we wound up doing. There's internships. There's workforce development in-house. So that's what we're doing. A lot of. And we'll start with the networking portion because it all boils down to understanding how to connect. And with Cisco, that's a major provider. And if you understand how it works with Cisco, it doesn't matter what technology you're using, a different vendor. It's going to be pretty much the same scenario there. Create an ACL access control list, what's permitted in, what's permitted out. And then from there, we'll develop other, technical skills that are going to say, is it, Windows, is it Linux, is it cloud? And that's what we've done a lot of networking and then cloud. That's kind of what we've focused on this last 6 or 7 months here.
Hey, Mike, I just want to add one thing. It just dawned on me. My company has an internship program, but we weren't using them in my part of the company until a couple of years ago. And so we tried to start something from scratch. And when we started it, we didn't have the right mentors in place. And the initial, and I just want to share what I think is a practical tip. Maybe when we brought interns in, I assigned them mentors that were people like me, like middle-aged with college kids or whatever. And what I realized is I actually needed mentors that were closer to where they were in life. So the first thing I had to do was fix my mentorship program. And then the second thing we had to do is we wanted to document an onboarding process. So we had an intention to be able to run someone and add code to our DevSecOps processes, but we didn't onboard the first couple of interns properly to orient them to what we were doing, why we were doing it, what our tool set was, how our processes worked, and what our culture was. So we took one of our interns and while working through it, asked that intern to use our process to document our process. So now we have mentors that are close to them in life, and we have an onboarding process so that we can get rid of all that ramp. It just goes much quicker to ramp them into work. And then we can kind of sit back and let them do what they do really well. And then we learn from them. So our expectation has changed where we're just teaching them stuff. They are teaching us stuff. And I mean by this, it could be interns, could be recent graduates, could be people who have done DevOps in a application development environment, but now want to apply it to infrastructure and hybrid cloud type infrastructure. So I think those might be a couple of practical tips I wanted to share.
Yeah, there's some companies that they have mentors, but they also have what they call transition coaches, folks who have just gone through the process and that sort of thing, pretty young, only a year out or so, 2 years out from actually onboarding, and then going back and having conversations with their either the interns or the new onboard folks to have a closer peer-to-peer relationship. But I just wanted to jump in there. Babur, what do you think about what was?
Yeah, so again, all good points. I'm going to add a couple more perspectives here. From academic standpoint, outside of the classroom, we have partnerships with nonprofits and companies. Companies usually internships. Mike, you are the board for the IT advisory board at Nova.
Right.
So that's one way. And if anyone else is interested, please reach out to Mike.
Yep.
And then also nonprofits like ISACA, we have ISACA student groups. So basically, if you're familiar with ISACA, it's a mini chapter at a college or university level. It's student-led, but the local chapter, GWDC for us, that supports it financially. So that's how they have. So imagine all the resources that they get through ISACA that's available for global members through ISACA. It's also available for students. So they have their own workshops, just like ISACA chapters have. They have monthly conferences and stuff, that they have bi-weekly workshops, meetings. And that's another great way to get connected early on with the industry, government, and also get those leadership skills. We're looking for more of those, from the government as well as the industry. Community college, we have the skill set. We have some of the most passionate folks that you will ever meet. You name the background, you name the nationality, diversity in all fronts. And, just not race and color, but intellectual capacity as well. And I think those are the, partnership that we're still looking for to strengthen that.
Cool. So when I was asking about gaps, one of the things that I've talked to folks about, and actually it was one of the questions that was sent in on the chat, was what I call kind of knife and fork skills for government, right? Understanding some of the nuances about being involved with the government. You have to have, I euphemistically say, a lot of patience, but it goes well beyond that. You have a lot of young folks who come in and they have a lot of energy and they want to do a lot of stuff, and they run into the large beast that is the government, and they feel somewhat stifled, and to try and teach them to look long-term strategically and piece by piece moving towards those goals. And how do you understand somewhat acquisition and management and what in the budget process that you need to champion in order to get whatever program you want? How do we start to teach folks those kinds of skills that are not really commercial skills, but there's so many folks that are and of course we're focused on the government here, that they're trying to be involved with the government either through a government contractor or government directly, and they need that information. So how do we help interns and fresh recruits from academia and folks that cross over that are not necessarily in the government? How do we help them do those things? So again, I'll start with Mike and we'll work our way around.
I came through government, so that's where I learned it. But the one thing I learned was if you focus on the mission, if the mission is your passion, then you will have patience to work through it. And so in my part of the world, we want to find people who want to be on our federal team who want to serve the public sector. And when we can find those people, then we can deal with them needing patience to learn to understand how to work through the government processes and sometimes bureaucracy and sometimes painfully slow ways to get things done. So we try to pick their heads up and say, don't focus on a specific task. To your point, Mike, it's that strategic vision. Focus on the mission of what the US public sector is trying to do and keep that as your true north. And then we work towards it. We try to find a balance. Like I want more people who understand government joining my team than not, but we do like to bring in fresh perspectives. So we constantly sort of, again, go back to this kind of mentorship or apprenticeship or partnership. We'll pair people up, someone with maybe a traditional long-standing experience with the government. We'll pair them up with someone who doesn't quite have it, so they learn from each other. And we found that buddy system to be a pretty good way to try to address it. But to really deal with it and to have the patience, we try to pick people's heads up and get them focused on that mission.
All right, Fred, you're up.
Thank you for that. Very interesting question. I think patience is the biggest. So if you're not familiar with working with the government, I need a box of paper clips. Well, that may take you may get them that afternoon. It may be next month. It may be next fiscal year. So it depends on the organization. But yeah, it's definitely a process. And I think the culture is going to be different in each. I've been associated with a number of different federal agencies, and GSA has been fantastic, but definitely nothing is going to get done quickly, and that's the biggest thing. So if you're coming in and you're like, hey, I want a hard charge, let's get it done. Yeah, there's going to be a few meetings that are involved, and it's going to take some time, patience.
And Fred, do you have any are you involved in, or do you have any suggestions or visions on how you can help folks get there? Right. I mean, because you're bringing people in, I'm sure you're hiring folks or people are being hired and they're coming to your class, right, to learn technology. Do you layer in some of those kinds of things, or should we layer in some of those kinds of things? What are your thoughts there?
So when they attend the classes, we're mainly focused on the technology, and so mine is more of a hands on the keyboard, and then as opposed to the logistics of getting the purchase orders. There's a lot of comments about getting purchasing, or but the thing has been consistent is it doesn't move maybe as fast as folks would like. So I don't really have a good hey, do this, and it works. It makes it go quicker. If I ever figure it out, I'll let you know. I haven't got it figured out myself.
So Babur, I know that we've talked about this at length too, sometimes offline, but have at it.
Yeah, sure. So let me get back to the mission. Mission is important, but something else closer than your employer's mission is your motivation. You have to want it to be there. Otherwise, it may not work out. I'm not going to say not going to work out. You can make it work, but you're just going to be that person that's going to go to work and back home, maybe miserable all the time. So you have to understand, are you motivated? Is that what you want? And Mike wants to hire people that are motivated, that wants to do it. And as leader, he's going to make it happen. Cisco has all the money, right? So, and then understanding the mission, and then instead of changing it right off the bat, if I were to wear my other hat, being a leader in the industry as well, a lot of people come in, they're motivated, they have some skills, technical, functional, or managerial, or combination. First thing they want to do is week number one, this is not working out, let's change the culture. And that's not going to work out. Instead of trying to change everything, understand it first and then adapt to it. Since this is a government topic, we're not going to be able to change the US government. And, each organization have their own way of doing things, their pace on doing it. And there's a reason for it. Maybe that's how it was designed. So but the biggest takeaway that I want people to take is don't try to change the culture. Don't try to change everything else. Understand it first. And it takes about 3 to 6 months to understand the organization that you're in. And on the contracting world, once you start interacting, whether you're on-site, off-site, and that those are the different dynamics as well. Now I'll go back to what I said earlier on, interpersonal skills. We make things happen. We are the makers, we are the breakers. Whatever that motivates you, you can, and technology is used as an enabler, right? You can use it as for the good, you can use it for the bad. And we see this all the time. And if you really go back to any problems that we have, it usually ties back to a human being. So it's really complex, a passion, persistence, wanting to be there, and you have to decide from the get-go, whether college, higher experience, when you're changing, especially after you graduate, you might have your awesome job. That may not be your only career path. And I think Fred mentioned something really early on about half an hour ago, saying that what you learned yesterday is not good enough in the next 2 years. I would argue and say that whatever you know today, it may not be good enough tomorrow, especially in the cloud realm. There are so many different providers, so many services. What are you going to do with all of them? So a lot of people get afraid and don't do it. And then those that try to just force it in, they figure out a couple $1 million later, maybe that wasn't the right way. So that leads us to putting the right people on the bus to drive the bus. So really complex topic, really passionate about it. So those are some of the things. And the biggest takeaway, my experience, do not try to change everything your way first week or the first month. Adapt to it and contribute to that mission. Otherwise, it may not work out.
Yeah, go ahead, Fred.
Yeah, to follow up with Babur, one of the things he says, what you know today might not be what you need tomorrow is a fantastic example of, I hear a lot of folks say, it says you want, so many years of experience. And I'm like, I said, just jump in and start learning as fast as you can. And, the new college grads can, based on my experience, the pace I was able to learn, I'll say years ago, I could learn, and regurgitate a lot quicker than I can now. And so you just jump in, and because it's changing all the time. So you may not be, the expert on it today. Jump in, and 3 months later, your skill set is going to really increase. So yeah.
Let me add something real quick. If you really want it, you're going to find a way to get it. Whatever skill level, that's where passion comes in. Sometimes like people ask, why do you teach? Well, I get paid. That's a little bit, that's part of it. Of course, I would be lying if I wouldn't, agree with that. And the second part is passionate about to share that knowledge. If that makes sense. If you really want it, you will find a way to get it. And without that, and that's why the cyber, security does not really work out. Sometimes we don't have the right people driving the bus. So what's going to happen? Probably disaster situation at best. And, we can kind of go back and forth with that. And one thing that will stay consistent is your relationships, especially if you are nice to work with, a pleasant person. Always have good attitude, positive attitude, and, take initiative to go and assist. Before you're asked to do by your management, maybe you can reach out. Hey, Fred, can I assist you with this? Hey, Mike, I see that you have 10 things. How can I make your life easier? And those are all initiative and wanting to help and being part of that mission.
So kind of jumping off there, I'm going to hazard a guess, and all of us look like we're old enough to have been pre-COVID working in our industries. I'm not going to make any assumptions, but I'm going to just jump to that. How are we changing going from pre-COVID new employee to post-COVID new employee? Because we have this whole crop of folks that are kind of starting in a virtual mode, and we have a hybridization coming down the pike. How how virtual are we, how on site are we, et cetera, and how are we working with those folks that are coming out who haven't lived in a job scenario previously, and now we have to work with these folks, again, socially, work-wise, work ethic, et cetera, et cetera. So what are your thoughts on what our current state is and kind of going forward with kind of helping those folks be productive? Start again with Mike.
What I would say, Mike, is what I'm experiencing is there's almost a reverse problem. And what I mean by that is I'll consider myself an old salt. I don't like to think of myself as old, but I've been doing this for a while. I'm used to going to an office and sitting in the same place every day and interacting with the same people or new people that I bump into, but I run into them in the same ways. I get a cup of coffee, I go to the bathroom, I go out to lunch, we go out to happy hour, we go to conferences, we go to in-person training classes. We have all this opportunity to experience each other in a very physical world. And for me, in my world, that's the group of people that's struggling most in life right now. All the kind of coaching that I'm doing as a manager and a leader right now is working with that population who is dying to get back to a conference or a lunch or an in-person meeting at the Pentagon. So they're struggling. The group that's kind of coming through this, be it high school, community college, four-year college, has been a gamer, has been online, has groups and communities of people all around the world, and has never thought about some of the problems that I have never actually physically met this person in life, yet they're a really good friend of mine because I've been playing games with them for the last 10 years. I'm not sure anyone's thriving right now, but they are adjusting better in this world as I see it. Now, this is where I feel fortunate that I'm in industry because we can work in a very hybrid, kind of new hybrid world environment. And I have the luxury of allowing people to work from where they want, how they want, and not forcing them to go on site, except for the cases where we're doing classified work and stuff like that. I don't know how flexible the government can continue to be as we move past this, this pandemic phase, but that flexibility then opens up opportunities for me to find people who want to do what we want to solve, regardless of where they are. And we can figure out time zones and communication mechanisms and all that. But this has created this really kind of cool environment where I used to always have to hire people in Washington, D.C. who had 10 years of experience and certain levels of clearances and were willing to drive into D.C. every day. I don't have to do that anymore, which is really, really cool. So it's sort of the old guys like me who are struggling with this. I need to be in person. And, we're trying to work through that, but I love the flexibility that we now have. And the final thing I say is I always coach people when I hire them. And I say, this work environment is like college. It's not like high school. I'm not taking attendance. I don't care if you come to the office or not. I'm not checking a box every Monday through Friday to see if you show up in the office. What I'm looking at is we're setting expectations and we're going to hold you accountable to those expectations, just like you would be, if you were in college, right? We start out the semester. This is what's going to be expected of you. I'm here to help however I can. These are the things you have to get done. And I'm going to hold you accountable to those, whether you're working in your basement, working from an office, working from a coffee shop. You got to get the work done in a manner that is collaborative and meets the customer's expectations. It doesn't matter to me so much anymore where you are physically.
So Fred, I'm going to ask you, what your thoughts are, and additional piece is the government going to look at that kind of fluidity going forward? Because typically, as a government contractor, they have particular parameters of where they want people's butts to sit as their contract says. Now, obviously, COVID changes that, but as we go forward, will they continue with that, or do you think that they will kind of go back to their ways? So, on to you, Fred.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting question, and I agree with what Mike had already said. So I've lived in the on-premise every day. You're walking into an office. I was in one office where they had the cubicles, and you had the high cubicles to where you couldn't see the person sitting next to you, and then they organization said, "Oh, we want online, everyone collaborating in the office." So they lowered the cubicle wall so you could see everybody. Well, that sounded great. They lowered all the cubicles, the walls, and then we had all these fights breaking out because someone was, tapping their pencil. It irritated the guy next to him, and I was like, well, we're definitely getting some communication, but it wasn't the communication that they were looking for. And you can just sit back, oh my goodness, those two are at it again, and just like cats and dogs, just fighting like crazy. A lot of arguments, stuff. So with the COVID, everything going remote, definitely some people are thriving more than others. And when I was a manager, I used to walk around the office and I could see everyone. How you doing? And it wasn't so much of what they said, but you could look at them and say, you look like you're doing fine. And then other people would say they're doing fine. You're like, nah, something's up. So you can kind of get a real feel for what's going on with your team, and start rearranging tasks and that kind of stuff. The online, for me, it's worked out really good. We were doing on-site training when I was with the Navy. It went to online, and one of the things that happened, we would do I'll say a early session, which was from like 9 to 12, and then we'd do a late session that was 5 o'clock to 8 or 5 to 10, 11 Eastern time. Well, the 5 o'clock at night, all of a sudden we were able to have classes with folks from continental United States. Could be East Coast, West Coast, Hawaii, Japan, Guam, Philippines, wherever in the world. And you'd have to say, where's everyone from? And East Coast, we're in Charleston, South Carolina. So 5 o'clock on Thursday is Friday morning in Japan. And so you're thinking, okay, we're going to take a lunch break or a supper break, or it's breakfast over in Japan. So that part was one of the good things. The bad part, so with teaching wise, you can set up in front of a class and look at a group of say 15 to 20, 30 folks, and say something, and look out there, look at everyone in the class and see, okay, this person I think's got it, this person's got it, this one it just has no clue. And so you don't even have to ask, you just kind of look out and say, let me redo this a little bit more. Online, you don't have that, you don't know you really don't know what they're doing unless they accidentally turn a camera on, which is a whole nother yeah. Sometimes that camera turns on, like, let me shut this off with the mic. So there's some other things that happen with on premise as opposed to online stuff. But it's for me, it's worked out really well. I miss as an instructor, I like to be face to face, seeing folks, putting our hands on this gear and the physical. So we did a lot of networking. So you'd create this bunch of equipment in the back of the room. How do you configure it up? And you could very easily grab a cable from one person's stack of networking gear, put it into another stack, and everyone in the classroom is connected. So I think it kind of depends on the people. Some people are thriving. Some people are, in each environment. Some people are okay. I'm making do with it. I will say one of the biggest drawbacks I see is the not exercising as much. So I found a shirt that fit. So luckily the first one fit, but I need to get out and exercise more. That has been my biggest drawback for this whole COVID, sitting at home.
Babur, have you been doing physical and virtual in class?
Yeah, so more virtual than physical, but I would like to talk about PPT, people, process, and technology. People aspect, especially during uncertainty, you have to, as leaders, you have to make your people feel safe. And just let them know it will be okay. I got you. Nothing's going to burn down. We may not figure it out the first week. However, it's going to be fine. And when your people hear that, wherever they work at, I think hopefully they will do the right thing for you when no one else is looking. And in processes, someone mentioned earlier, I think, Mike, onboarding process. Just like you have it onboarded, the HR process for onboarding the personnel, say on premises, you should have the same thing for a virtual environment. And good organization can adapt to that. Technology, we have, in terms of process, we also have contingency planning. Contingency, contingency, contingency. Everywhere that I worked at, even when I do the classes, I have contingencies. Zoom may not work out, they can call me directly. Or we can go to WebEx, or we can go to Microsoft Teams or something else. One way or another, using the cloud resources, we will figure that. And then technology, well, we have the cloud. We should be able to work from anywhere. For the longest time, our government thought that if you are at home, maybe you're not productive. But I think we proved them wrong. And of course, you have your classified systems, you have to go in, mission critical, but at least, the surface area is much smaller so you can work with. So again, it starts from the people, and then your processes like onboarding, and then leverage the technologies for your benefit. I love the cloud. This is a cloud talk. You can go anywhere, log on. And I don't know if we're going to get into zero trust, what is it, Beyond Corp or Google or other places, so we don't have to do this VPN thing anymore. It doesn't get any better than that. It's available. Why don't we use it? Why don't we go to FedHive cloud and use those resources? So we have it. We just need to be creative. But again, I'm a big people believer. It really starts from people, and especially during uncertain times, leadership styles. If you can make them feel safe, they will do anything for you. If you're freaking out with your people, forget it. It's already game over, before starting the war. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. So a little kind of aside here. So what I've been seeing is less vertical. Hey, we're the CTO's office. We're in this office area, this silo, and looking more horizontally across different parts of the agency. Are you all starting to see that? And how do we bring the workforce to focus on that breadth rather than that vertical kind of style of siloed technology? Because we're getting more and more owners of these particular projects. So we've got about 8 minutes left. If anybody has more questions, I'd like to make sure that we get those on the chat so that we can either ask them or at least respond to them later. So Mike, what are your thoughts on that horizontal versus vertical? Is that a direction things are going in? Is that just me finding a kind of an ancillary type anecdotal thing, or go ahead?
I think that in some parts of the world, we talk about this notion of a full stack engineer. We talk about the notion of full stack observability. We talk about shadow IT, like the way the technology has set itself up. The horizontal focus is exactly what has to happen, Mike. And I think that comes back to some of what Fred and Babur were saying, was that this now comes down to leadership and individual motivation. And it's not about job jars anymore, and not about like, well, this is my little tiny swim lane. When I started at Cisco way back in the day, and we were talking about voice over IP, and there used to be a voice team and a data team, and for the most part, those concepts are gone. Technology's accelerated so rapidly in that 20 years or 25 years since those concepts were new. That's happening across the entire industry. It's not just about little pieces of the industry that are coming together. The entire industry has changed in such a significant way. Cloud economics is what drove that. Cloud is a technology underneath of the economics that drove it. But it absolutely requires a horizontal focus. And if there's one thing that people want to focus on to try to learn, it's that full stack, whatever idea. So zero trust in and of itself is not useful unless it's included in a broader perspective. So the technology becomes very deep, but the use of it becomes, incredibly wide as we try to solve for these problems. So, yes, Mike, yes, 1,000 times yes. It's all about trying to not be stovepiped and really start to cut across things, which then goes back to leadership, which means you got to have a vision, which is all about, what is our mission, assemble the teams, get people working well together, and then go execute.
All right, Fred.
I'm going to say ditto to what Mike just said. That leadership is going to set the tone. And if the leadership is excited about the technology, excited about change, it's coming regardless if they want to embrace it or not, in my opinion. So if they're excited about it and they can say, hey, I don't know about, zero trust. I don't know what's going on with the cloud, whatever the technology is, because it's changing all the time. who can we get to get us schooled up on this and smarter with this technology? As you bring folks in, as new graduates come, they're gonna sense that the leadership is excited about this technology, and then you've got organizations. So with GSA, we're working with the focus is on the small agencies. There's probably 500 plus, 400 plus, something like that. A bunch of them, and it's just saying, here's the knowledge. We're not, definitely, I'm not the expert on it. I'm pretty good at a few things, a bunch of them, but there's other things that I'm like, okay, I need who's an expert on this, who's got some expertise on this, subject matter experts. Let's use them. Education, reaching out using SMEs, education. The different colleges, universities have all little groups of subject matter experts in all this area. So, and it's going to start with leadership. Leadership's going to set the tone. They're going to be excited, and then that's going to come down to the individuals being passionate about, I really want to do this, and pick a field that you want and start with that. So, yeah.
Babur.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of academics, at least in my classes, I teach them to be adaptable. They should be able to work with verticals, horizontals, and then flat organizations as well. Adaptability is what's important. Of course, leadership can do their part by making people feel safe, but then people have to pick up the work and take it to the finish line. So flexibility, adaptability, and right mindset, especially when something hits the fan, like Fred said it earlier. That's what matters, and that's how you have a winning team. And it's not going to matter, in the office, it might be more, vertical. If you're online, it's flat. And that kind of, differs based on the organizations that you work at as well. So we try to teach the mindset of adaptability, flexibility, and understanding the mission, the culture, and personalities, and then trying to adapt to it versus changing it.
Cool. All right. Speed round. You guys got 45 seconds each. What do you want to leave as the last thing about what we're talking about? There's more stuff. There's budget stuff and how do we talk to people about money and efficiency, et cetera, but we'll leave that to another day. Last, 30, 40 seconds, Mike.
I'd like to foot stomp what Fred said. Jump in, just go experience this. You can learn about any cloud service provider and any of their services for free. You can do it through Coursera. You can do it online. You can do it from the CSP itself. You can go to structured training. It doesn't matter, but just get in and get your hands on something and you will learn about these concepts.
Fred.
Yeah, same answers I had before. I agree with what Mike said, and probably agree with what Babur is going to also follow up with. But yeah, just jump in. And there's a lot of training resources. GSA, the community practice, we're providing a lot, and we're also partnering with other groups that are doing a lot of training also. So, and the key is not doing a death by PowerPoint. It is hands-on. You want to, because when you're getting in a discussion, it sure helps if you said, I might not be an expert, but I've at least seen this work in the technology. But yeah, just jump in, and if you've got questions about what training resources are available, a bunch of you, feel free to reach out.
Babur, 30 seconds.
All right. So be passionate, be persistent, stay motivated, find a mentor. No one can do it on their own. We didn't do it on our own. Find a mentor, that's someone that you can trust, so they can tell you the good and the bad, how it is, because this is your career. You don't want someone sugarcoating anything. You want to succeed. And then take advantage of all the technologies. All those cloud service providers have free resources for you. Partner with Nova Community College. We have affordable classes, and you name the technology, we have it. And never take no for an answer, especially when your gut feeling is saying that you can't do it. There may be a lot of naysayers. Oh, you just come from 2-year college, someone else is going to beat you. That may not be true, because as long as you're passionate, persistent, and motivated, you can crush anything that you get your hands on.
Awesome. Okay. So I want to say thank you. I know Nicole's on to shoo us off, but thanks to my panelists. I appreciate it. We want to try and take this, distill it, and put it into a paper, some things that are operational and actionable. So please, if you have more questions or you come up with more ideas as we go through, send them to us. Nicole, you can tell them where to send whatever questions. And again, I want to thank you all for listening.
All right, everyone, for anyone that does have questions, my email is now in the chat, if so you know who to direct them to. But thank you all for the attendees that were able to join us today in the Cloud Migration Working Group. I appreciate you guys and the panelists. You did an amazing job. Hopefully I get to see you guys all on the next ATARC event. Other than that, have a great rest of your day. All right.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.